Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the joint press conference of the Ministers of Foreign Affairs of Finland and Canada, Mr. Pekka Haavisto and Ms. Mélanie Joly. We will first hear the statements of both ministers, after which there will be some time for questions from the representatives of the media. And now I would like to give the floor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Finland, Mr. Pekka Haavisto, please.
Thank you, and I'm very pleased today to host my Canadian colleague Mélanie Joly here in Helsinki. And it was very nice, Mélanie, that you could visit Finland. We have come across on several occasions, and this was a unique opportunity to continue the discussion, and also the good way to mark the 75th anniversary of our diplomatic relations between Canada and Finland. And of course, it's very obvious that the bilateral relations between our countries, Finland and Canada, are excellent. We are very like-minded countries on a variety of issues. We share same values. We have been talking about the principles of democracy, rule of law, media freedom, human rights, equality issues. And I think all of these issues are values that we share. We also have been today discussing quite a lot about Arctic issues. We are both Arctic countries, and the Arctic cooperation is very important to both of us. We have spoke about the indigenous people, we have been speaking about the environmental issues, sustainable development, climate issues, also how to develop Arctic areas culturally and economically. And I told you that we have our Sami minority living up in the north, and also we have a Truth and Reconciliation Commission now working on the rights of the Sami people. We did also today a joint statement, which is the path to even closer collaboration, and we welcome having a solid framework for our future cooperation between Finland and Canada. We had also a deep discussion on many topical foreign and security policy issues. Issues like Ethiopia and Afghanistan were touched in our discussions, but of course the main concern is now the war in Ukraine, the Russian aggression against Ukraine, and the concerns that this is creating in the whole of Europe. We both strongly condemn Russia's attack on Ukraine, and Russia's invasion is a grave breach of international law and a violation of the Charter of the United Nations. Russia must cease the military actions immediately, unconditionally, withdraw all forces and military equipment from the entire territory of Ukraine, and fully respect Ukraine's territorial integrity, sovereignty, and independence within its internationally recognized borders. We also discussed the humanitarian situation in Ukraine, which is extremely difficult, including the siege cities like Mariupol, and the horrifying scenes we have just been seeing about the atrocities which is happening in the Ukrainian towns, including Bucha, are deeply shocking. Finland and the European Union have condemned these atrocities in the strongest possible terms. It's of utmost importance that the perpetrators of these atrocities will be held accountable. We support measures to ensure accountability, in particular the investigation launched by the International Criminal Court prosecutor into war crimes and crimes against humanity. Russia has deliberately targeted civilian targets. It's now of utmost importance to guarantee the safety of civilians and to enable humanitarian access. We both, of course, continue our diplomatic efforts in cooperation with the key partners so that a negotiated solution can be found to end Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has profoundly also changed our security environment. We have responded to this with the United Transatlantic Front. We have no doubt this will continue and further consolidate as we continue to be faced with a grave challenge to our rules-based international order. We commend Canada for the solidarity shown to the Ukrainian people. We know that you are hosting a very big Ukrainian diaspora, and these concerns are, of course, very strong among the diaspora as well. Also, your robust material, humanitarian and economical support has been exemplary. We have also discussed how a change on Finland's security environment has naturally increased the debate among both citizens and political decision makers here in Finland. The Finnish government will give a white paper on security to the parliament in mid-April, And in that white paper and in the parliamentary debate, also issues like Finnish possible membership of NATO will be discussed. We appreciate the firm position of Canada regarding NATO's open door policy and the sovereign right of each country to decide on its security and defence policy. We also appreciate the active dialogue with NATO members on the current situation. Thank you.
Minister Joly, please.
Thank you. Good evening all, and good afternoon for Canadians watching us. Thank you, Pekka. Thank you, Minister. And to all our Finnish hosts for warmly welcoming us today. I'm very pleased to be here among such good friends of Canada. These are uncertain times, like you just highlighted, Pekka, which makes us even more grateful for our friendship with Finland. Merci, Pekka, et à tous nos autres Finlandais de nous avoir chaleureusement accueillis aujourd'hui. Je suis très heureuse d'être parmi de si bons amis du Canada. Nous vivons des temps incertains, ce qui nous rend encore plus reconnaissants de notre amitié avec la Finlande. As many of you know, this year we're marking 75 years of diplomatic ties, which is truly a milestone worth celebrating. Our relationship endures for many reasons. We've made shared, lasting commitments to democracy, diversity, equality, human rights, and multilateralism. We're trading partners, transatlantic partners, Arctic partners, and partners in sustainability and addressing climate change. Also, as a Montrealer whose hometown team, the Montreal Canadiens, has greatly benefited from Finnish hockey talent over the years, how could I not mention our shared love of hockey and my deep love for Saku Koivu? And while Canadians naturally were cheering on Team Canada during the last Olympics, we recognize that you won the gold medal in men's hockey. But we won the, gold medal for women's hockey. Of course, on a much more sober note, our visit to Finland is taking place in a very difficult context, which is Russia's illegal, unjustifiable war on Ukraine. This weekend, the world witnessed an abhorrent and senseless attack on innocent civilian lives in Bucha. These acts of terrors won't go unpunished. We will support the International Criminal Court as they're investigating about the war crimes and crimes against humanity that have been committed and are committed in Ukraine by Russia and Russian actors. During our time in Helsinki today, we've been focusing on ways Canada and Finland can support Ukraine. We've discussed hybrid threats, including Russian disinformation, and how to end President Putin's attack on democracy and world stability. Continued collaboration will be key to our success, and Canada and Finland are part of a common diplomatic front. We value our transatlantic and EU-NATO partnership between both of our countries, which are key to the security of our own country. And also we want to continue to engage on further cooperation, as mentioned in our joint declaration. We'll continue to put maximum pressure on President Putin and his enablers while supporting Ukrainians in their fight for freedom. Canada has sanctioned more than 1,000 individuals and entities who have enabled and funded this invasion and the disinformation war that seeks to justify it. We have banned main export to Russia and imports of Russian crude oil. We have delivered lethal and non-lethal equipment, donated nearly $200 million in humanitarian aid, and are ready to welcome an unlimited number of refugees here in Canada. And Minister Haavisto and I agree, this struggle is about much more than Ukraine. The norms that have underpinned global security for decades are at stake. Canada and Finland helped to found these norms, and we have a role to play in its defense. All countries that value democracy, human rights, peace, and prosperity have a role to play. Canada salutes Finland's support for Ukraine and its people, We too are steadfast in our commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty, territorial integrity, and independence. And before I conclude, I would like to take a moment to talk about the Arctic, which is another important sphere of Canada-Finland cooperation. Nearly 40% of Canada is considered Arctic or Northern. Some 150,000 people in Canada call this vast region home. Meanwhile, 1/3 of Finland lies above the Arctic Circle, and an area that is home to some 180,000 people. We are natural partners. Already, Canada and Finland are collaborating, and we see opportunity to further expand our cooperation on social, scientific, cultural, and economic matters. We will continue to assert our sovereignty and cooperate with all Nordic countries. In recent years, we've worked together through the Arctic Council, in particular. But again, like Finland, Canada recently paused our participation in the Arctic Council on account of Russia's leadership. But the Council remains important, and we look forward to continuing its important work. In the interim, Canada will continue to be a close friend and partner to Finland, just as we have for the past 75 years. And so thanks again for welcoming us. Le Canada va continuer d'être un ami, un partenaire de la Finlande, comme nous l'avons fait au cours des 75 dernières années. Et bien entendu, je vous remercie, cher Pekka, cher ami, de nous avoir si gentiment accueillis. Merci.
Thank you, Minister Joly. Thank you, Minister Haavisto. Now we will move to the questions and answers part of the press conference. You can ask for the floor by writing your name and your media in the chat box. And please ask your question in English, and you can switch on your camera while speaking. First in line is CTV News, Kevin Gallagher. Kevin, floor is yours.
Hello, this question is for Minister Joly. In talking about the alleged war crimes that against Russian President Vladimir Putin and other Russians within, for what we've seen in Bucha, I just want to know what really can be done to hold Russia accountable here, since Russia doesn't really formally recognize the ICC, these international institutions that are meant to, dissuade or prevent these types of crimes. What effect does it have on a country like Russia? And, what can be done other than, while this investigation is going on by the ICC, what can be done to try and further protect civilians in Ukraine?
Well, thank you, Kevin, for your question. Obviously, what happened over the weekend is completely outrageous, completely unjustifiable, and shocking. And I share definitely the strong feelings Canadians had when they saw pictures and videos of what happened over the weekend in Ukraine. These are clearly war crimes. These are clearly crimes against humanity. And it is important for Canada to play its role in making sure that there is accountability for these acts, and these acts cannot go unpunished. So that's why we will work within the International Criminal Court to support the prosecutor as he is investigating the issue, but also they need support, they need funding. We will be supporting and funding the organization. I've also raised the issue with Michelle Bachelet, which is the High Commissioner for the United Nations Human Rights Council, as they are also investigating what is happening. And I look forward to having a conversation with her very soon. And finally, I would say we need to make sure that we continue to put maximum pressure on the Russian regime. There needs to be more sanctions. There will be more sanctions on the part of Canada, and we need to work also with partners. I'll be heading to the G7 later this week. The G7 needs to do more. We need to make sure that we isolate Russia economically, diplomatically, and politically.
Maybe just from the Finnish perspective, a couple of additional remarks to what Minister Joly said, first of all, of course, this has been very shocking news in Finland as well. The main news what has happened in Bucha and what's happening currently in places like Mariupol, where the civilians are in the middle of warfare. First of all, it's very important to understand that war has also rules, and these rules are set by the Geneva Conventions, and if you break those rules, you are making war crimes, and this is what it looks like has happened in Bucha. And it's at this moment very important that we collect all the data, we interview those who have been witnessing these atrocities, and we have all the data then for the future processes. European Union has been very strongly condemning what we have seen, and European Union is ready to prepare, of course, the next sanction package for Russia.
Thank you, ministers. We have a lot of questions in line, so let's try to be concise while asking. Next is a freelance journalist from Canada, Mr. Dennis Kovtun. Please.
Thank you very much. My question is directed to both ministers. Today, Lithuania expelled Russian ambassador, and Germany will be expelling 40 diplomats whose work in Germany is not connected with their diplomatic status. Does the government of Canada and does the government of Finland intend to follow Lithuania and Germany in expelling some Russian diplomats? And in general, what are our respective governments' intentions regarding the management of our relationships with Russia?
From the Finnish perspective, we of course follow very closely always that the diplomats are acting in a real diplomatic work, and we are ready to react if this is not the case. And I don't want to make any public statement on that, but this is the case now in Finland, that we are of course looking the issue from that light, that the diplomats are doing the job that they are here for.
Well, I would add to that, and I agree with what Minister Haavisto just mentioned. I would say this is a top priority for our government. Definitely, we're concerned with any security issues coming from Russian diplomats. We take stock of what Lithuania and Germany has announced today, and I'll have conversations also with key cabinet ministers to make sure that we react promptly.
Next is CBC Tom Parry. Over to you. Do we have CBC Tom Parry online? We can't hear you.
Are you there? We can't hear you.
All right, let's move on to the next question while Mr. Parry will try again with the microphone. Next is La Presse Canadienne, Émilie Bergeron. Please.
Émilie, es-tu là? On ne peut pas t'entendre.
If you have audio problems, you could also write your question in the chat box for the moderator to read it. While we are waiting for La Presse Canadienne and CBC, we have Toronto Star, Tonda McCharles online. Please.
Hi there. Can you hear me? Thanks. I'd just like to follow up and ask the Finnish Foreign Minister, what advice did you get from Canada on your decision about joining NATO at this time?
I like how you frame it.
Well, of course, we have been sharing with Minister Joly the information that we currently have on the situation. Of course, the how do we now analyze our own security situation is that we have seen a remarkable use of force in Europe against one independent nation, Ukraine. And every nation, of course, in Europe has to analyze what this could mean and what kind of threats this kind of action could pose to their own sovereignty and their own government. And this is the analysis that we are currently making here in Finland. As you probably have noticed, a majority of the Finnish people, for the first time in our history, are in favor in opinion polls of the NATO membership, and we have the currently ongoing political process in several political parties to form a position on this issue. We have in our earlier white papers have had this what we call the NATO option. The NATO option means that we are ready to discuss about the NATO membership if our security environment changes. And we are very grateful for governments like Canada, who was very strongly supporting the NATO open door policy, so that those countries who want to apply for the membership and who qualify those criteria of NATO could be taken as members. But this is now our own debate that is ongoing, and when we have some results from this debate, of course we will inform NATO and NATO member states about that.
If I could add to that, like Minister Haavisto, like Pekka mentioned, obviously it is up to Finland to take its decision regarding its intent to join NATO, but we think that in every single measure, maybe military capabilities to shared values and the respect for the rule of law, Finland is worthy of a NATO membership, and will continue to work with Finland as they're taking their own decisions.
We have now Tom Parry, CBC Online. Can you hear us, Tom?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, now it's good.
Okay. Thanks. Minister Joly, I'm just wondering, there was a delegation of Ukrainian MPs in Canada last week. They asked for further sanctions against Russia, also, though, for heavy weapons, tanks, artillery, anti-aircraft defense systems. So will Canada be sending any more weapons to Ukraine? What specifically can it send, and what further sanctions could Canada impose against Russia? And if you could answer in both English and French, that'd be very helpful.
Thank you, Tom. So yes, there will be more sanctions announced by Canada against Russian and Belarusian individuals and entities. This will come very soon. We know we have to do more, and we will be doing more. As for the G7, I think that collectively, the European Union, the UK, the US, Japan, ourselves need to do more as well. And I had really good conversations with my Finnish counterpart here, but as well with Secretary Liz Truss yesterday. And I'm heading tomorrow to Germany to continue to make sure that we are coordinated and we go even further on sanctions. On the question of providing lethal weapons, of course, my colleague, Minister of Defense, Anita Anand, is working on many scenarios, and I'll be supporting her while she does her work. So I'll say that in French. Bear with me, Pekka. Donc, premièrement, au niveau des sanctions, il y aura plus de sanctions contre des entités, des personnes russes et biélorusses. L'objectif est de faire en sorte de continuer à mettre de la pression sur le régime russe. Nous savons qu'il y a encore plus de pression à effectuer et c'est ce que nous allons faire et nous allons l'annoncer sous peu. Également, il va de soi que le G7 doit en faire plus. Et c'est la conversation que j'ai eue avec mon homologue finlandais aujourd'hui. C'est la conversation que j'ai eue avec mon homologue britannique hier. Et je m'en vais en Allemagne demain pour être en mesure qu'à la fin de la semaine, lorsque nous serons au G7, nous serons en mesure d'avoir des sanctions plus fortes et encore plus coordonnées, parce que ce qui s'est passé au cours du week-end en Ukraine et ce qui se passe au moment où on se parle est complètement inacceptable. Par rapport à l'envoi d'équipements et d'armes en Ukraine, ma collègue Anita Anand travaille sur différents scénarios et bien entendu, je vais l'appuyer dans sa tâche.
We still have a couple of questions in line. Next is TVA Nouvelle, Olivier Ferron-Boisset.
Hi, thanks for taking our questions. As requested I will ask it in English. I will try, but I would appreciate if Minister Joly, you could answer in French, please. Just want to hear more about the sanctions that you are talking about. At this point, what type of sanctions do you have left and that you're hoping could have an impact? And the other side of my question would be about the war crimes investigations. You say you would support such thing. What do you mean by that? What Canada can do on that front? En français, s'il vous plaît. Merci.
Oui, je vais commencer par la fin de ta question. Le Canada était un des premiers pays à faire en sorte de demander au Tribunal pénal international de faire enquête sur ce qui se passe en Ukraine et au fait qu'il y ait des crimes contre l'humanité, des crimes de guerre qui soient commis par des dirigeants russes. Alors, on va continuer à soutenir le Tribunal pénal international. On va leur fournir plus d'appui, plus de ressources, parce que avant que les procédures puissent être enclenchées, il doit y avoir une enquête, et l'enquête doit être bien soutenue. Alors, c'est pourquoi on va continuer de travailler avec le Tribunal pénal international, parce que c'est complètement inacceptable, c'est choquant, c'est inhumain ce qui se passe présentement en Ukraine. Ça, c'est la première chose. Deuxième chose, j'ai déjà parlé à Michelle Bachelet, qui est en charge de la Commission des droits de l'homme, du Conseil des droits de l'homme des Nations unies. Et le Conseil des droits de l'homme des Nations unies fait également enquête. Alors, notre objectif, c'est également soutenir Michelle Bachelet dans le cadre de son travail. Maintenant, au même moment où il y a du travail qui est fait pour justement qu'il y ait ces enquêtes-là et qu'il y ait ces procédures judiciaires-là qui soient effectuées, il faut absolument mettre davantage de pression sur le régime Poutine. Il faut absolument avoir plus de sanctions. Il y aura plus de sanctions qui vont être mises sur pied contre des oligarques, des entités, donc des compagnies russes et biélorusses. Et j'aurai plus d'informations à dire à ce sujet vraiment sous peu. Merci.
I would now take a question from the Finnish press for change. We have Helsingin Sanomat Elina Kervinen online. Over to you, Elina.
Yes, thank you for the question. For Minister Haavisto, could Finland stop importing energy from Russia if EU cannot make such a decision collectively? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Of course, we have been taking the line in Finland that we support the EU sanctions, and we do together sanctions with European Union. There are a couple of reasons for that, but one is, of course, that the sanctions should be as effective as possible and really should influence the Russian leadership and decision makers in a most effective way. And we have not only done the sanctions on the European level, but we have been coordinating them also on the transatlantic level with countries like US and Canada and UK and so forth, so that to get them as effective as possible. Now I know that there is under discussion several types of sanctions on energy as well, and of course if and when these kind of decisions will be made by European Union, Finland fully will follow those sanction decisions.
Next is Canadian press, Mike Blanchfield, please.
Yeah, good morning, ministers. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Mike, we can hear you. We can't
Okay,
see
great.
you, but we can hear you.
If you can repeat in French as well, it'd be great, Minister Joly. How urgent is it for war crimes investigators to get on the ground as quickly as possible to document what's going on, given that we are in a climate of disinformation that we talk about so frequently? And when will Canadian media?
It is extremely urgent. And that's why we need to make sure that we work with the ICC and its people and obviously the prosecutor. I know that they've been looking for resources and been contacting many countries. Canada will step up to the plate and offer support to the ICC. And time is of the essence. Every life that is lost due to atrocious conducts on the part of Russian military or Russian Russian leader is something that we have to stop. And that's why it is important that the investigation be ongoing as we speak. Donc, en français, ce que je dirais, c'est que c'est extrêmement urgent de faire en sorte que l'enquête du tribunal pénal international se fasse le plus rapidement possible. Pourquoi? Parce que il va de soi qu'il y a des crimes qui sont commis au moment où on se parle, et plus l'enquête a lieu rapidement, plus on est capable d'empêcher que ces crimes éventuellement continuent d'être commis. Alors, le tribunal pénal international a convoqué et a fait appel à plusieurs pays pour qu'on soutienne davantage l'organisation à travers différentes formes de ressources, et le Canada jouera son rôle et s'assurera de soutenir davantage l'enquête en cours.
Just to add that also from the Finnish perspective, that it's very important that those researchers could get on the field as rapidly as possible, and the experiences, for example, from the Western Balkans showed that you can find reliable witnesses and you can find reliable material on the ground when you are there immediately, and that helps to so that we can find those who are guilty ones.
And I would add to that, Russians need to know that the investigation is happening and that accountability will be sought. It's fundamental.
I'm afraid we're running out of time, but to complete the round, we still have 3 journalists online who haven't asked, and next would be the Finnish broadcasting company Yle. Veera Pennanen, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I would have a question for Mr. Haavisto. So today we have heard that Turkey, a NATO member, argues that obstacles of the exporting military materials should be lifted. Can this be seen as a condition for Finland's possible NATO membership or application?
Well, of course, I think there has been many countries that have been putting some limitations to arms export earlier related to some of the cases in Syria and so forth. Finland is one of those countries. Many NATO countries have similar limitations. I think that currently we are not in that kind of trading business of Finnish NATO membership to be exchanged to something, but it's of course a very principal issue that how the European security will be organized, and it's important that all countries make their own positions. Of course, we are fully aware that at least in the previous processes, the approval of the candidates in national parliaments, there are 30 member states in NATO, might take months, even 1 year, and of course we have to be prepared if we come in the situation that we will apply for the membership. We have to be prepared for such a longer period, and of course then introduce the Finnish security thinking and how do we analyze the European security also to those countries that are dealing with the issues. But I think we are not yet there.
Thank you.
Now we have La Presse Canadienne back, but the question is in writing. Minister Joly, you mentioned the suspension of Arctic Council activities. What is the longer-term way to go? Is expulsing Russia an option to ensure other members can still have the forum? And she's asking if you could please answer in French.
Oui, parfait, merci. Il va de soi que la collaboration, la coopération en lien avec l'Arctique est fondamentale, particulièrement au moment où la Russie a décidé d'envahir une autre fois l'Ukraine. C'est une des raisons pourquoi je suis ici, parce que c'est important que les différents pays qui font partie du Conseil de l'Arctique se parlent, s'entraident et s'échangent l'information. La Finlande et le Canada ont une excellente collaboration. C'est le cas également avec les autres pays nordiques, que ce soit la Suède, le Danemark ou encore l'Islande et la Norvège. Nous avons une très bonne collaboration avec les Américains. Ma collègue Anita Anand travaille sur la modernisation de NORAD avec son homologue américain. J'aurai l'occasion de parler avec mon homologue américain Anthony Blinken plus tard cette semaine. mais également, c'est important pour le Canada d'avoir une approche multilatérale, même si le Conseil de l'Arctique, présentement, ne siège pas. Il en va de la protection de notre propre souveraineté en Arctique, mais aussi de notre propre protection.
There is a question from Canadian journalist to please repeat the Arctic comments in English as well.
Okay, so you're discovering our bilingualism. Donc, what I just said is the Arctic Council is extremely important to Canada, but we know this year because of Russia's chairship of the Arctic Council, meetings are not happening. Hence, this is one of the reasons why I'm here in Finland. It is important that we reinforce our Arctic collaboration. We already have strong cooperation with Finland. We also want to make sure that that's the case with other Nordic countries, including Iceland, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. Minister Annan is in close contact with her counterpart regarding the NORAD modernization, and obviously we will continue to partner with the Americans. I'm having a discussion with Tony Blinken later this week, but we want to make sure that we have a multilateral approach while the Arctic Council is not meeting at this point, because it is a question for us to maintain our sovereignty and make sure that we protect our land.
Our time has come to an end. I would like to thank the ministers very much for their interventions, and many thanks all the representatives of media for your interest and attention. Have a good evening. We close the press conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.